Could some of you talk about the communication efforts or what you're thinking would work better for communication towards students?
I think that what is most important for college students is to the universities to be transparent on what's happening. I think that in my case, I would really appreciate that the university said, we have no idea what's going to happen, so just give us this amount of time and we'll try to figure it out. I think that, as Adriana says, having that avalanche of emails every hour saying that we're trying to figure something out, we'll keep you posted, and some students were in class, some students were in tests, some students were doing everything, and our world could have not stopped for an email every 15 seconds. And I think that's something that happened at my university, is that the scheduled emails that the university sends throughout the week were still being sent, and you had an email saying all classes will be online, and then 15 minutes later saying an email, we'll hope to see you at the student quad for this concert. And it's like, okay, is this still happening or something? And then a third email saying, oh, that concert, it's canceled. And you're like confused or something.
What worked within your virtual classes? Was there any teaching style, any use of technology, any use of lesson plans, modalities? Was there any way that they engage, or certain types of classes that maybe were taught better online versus others? Can maybe talk to the positive?
I think like even in this webinar, we're doing the polls, and I think it makes it much more interactive for the viewers and also for the lecturer. I know that was more successful in my classes that were live classes. Whenever they did polls during the class, it definitely kept me engaged versus the ones where the teachers would talk for an hour and 20 minutes at a time. And I think that that's a great way to get the students engaged and make sure they're actually listening.
I know one thing my school did was that every professor had like virtual office hours. So if for some reason you weren't able to attend like the Zoom class, or it just didn't work for you, so you wanted that more one-on-one time with your teacher, you could. And I think that's really smart, because sometimes in that virtual setting, maybe it's not as easy to raise your hand or ask a question or interrupt or whatever it may be. So giving students that option, I think, was really smart, and I think it's something other professors could definitely do.
This doesn't necessarily apply to hybrid, this is mostly for entirely being online, but when you're entirely online, at least for me when I was home, I had, like I said, I only had one class that was meeting for an actual class, for actual Zoom class. Everything else was asynchronous. I had no real schedule in my day, and I kind of went from having like a very structured day at school to kind of now I have all this limited time and I can't leave my house. So in theory, I should be doing a lot of work, but it's depending. I had times when I was super motivated, super unmotivated. So one of the things that I did enjoy is towards the end of it, one of my classes switched to doing, instead of meeting for the full hour and 15 minutes, we just meet for a half hour and just kind of do a check-in. The teacher would do a little lesson, and then the remainder 45 minutes was designated for us to complete a task that was due for the end of class. And that was something for me that was super helpful, because I liked not having to stare and listen to a lecture for an hour and 15 minutes, but I still had that 30 minutes of structured time and then the remaining 45 minutes to get work done. A lot of times we would either do individual work, we would do partner work, we'd go into breakout rooms. The teacher would be available for conferences, so one-on-one. So I think that was kind of definitely the class that I enjoyed the most and that was the most engaging and helpful.
I think that's something that I appreciated a lot of my professors doing, was that they sent a Google form on that first week asking students, can you log in on Zoom classes? Do you want to change the hour of the lecture? Do you want them pre-recorded? Do you want them on YouTube? Do you want us to do maybe a phone call instead of doing Zoom calls? We explored every way that we could communicate with professors, and we really appreciated that they did that to us as well. I think that's something that I would love to see other colleges imitate from mine. That is what the professors were really compensating and asking students, what do you want us to do to work together against each other? I think that's something that I had a problem with one of my professors, was that he intended that the semester was going to start the same way, and classes went online on Friday, and on Monday it was business as usual. I think that many students, for example, had family, parents that were sick with the virus or were sick of something else. And when you're at home, not everyone has a perfect household, and some people have some problems, some social problems that need to be attended as well. So I think that I really appreciated that professors took that time to understand the needs of students at home, and that not because you have your bed nearby or that you can sleep too late in some cases, that everything's going to be easier from now on.
What does the student leadership or student experience look like for you guys now? What do you want it to look like?
I think, and this also partially relates back to how freshmen can get involved coming on campus. I think, as we've talked about, a big part of that's going to fall on extracurriculars and the on-campus organizations. And each one of those are student-led, so they need to each do their own part to plan and enact these activities. But one of the ones I'm in, my business fraternity, has done a great job of doing, we have social, cultural, and professional events, and they've done a great job of still having many opportunities under each of those pillars to get involved. A lot of them are online, but again, we all have to get creative right now. So understanding that Zoom has made it really easy for everybody to get on just like this, and just being flexible, and if you're willing to do that, it's really easy to get involved. And then on the professional side of that, so for example, for us, we have the Gamecock Consulting Club, and we've been able to, I think in times like this, things such as webinars and other professional opportunities that weren't as utilized before are becoming even bigger. So there's a lot of opportunities with that as well. We've found that I actually now probably have more opportunities to get in contact with professionals in the industry and things like that than I did before, and now know how to do that. And I think that also comes with life slowing down a little bit and just being stuck at home. But everybody's willing to do things like this. And so as long as you have the opportunity to do that, students are willing to take advantage of it.
Quick backstory. So Georgetown, our social scenes are run through different clubs. And so club culture is kind of the main just way people interact with each other. So we were trying to figure out how do you take something that's so focused around in-person meetings and different club activities, and there's different sports clubs, there's business clubs, there's activism clubs. How do you take those things that meet in person and then transition them to an online setting? And then also, how do you recruit new members? Because we usually have an activities fair every semester, but obviously that won't happen too. So one of the things that we're trying to compile right now is almost like a directory of different clubs to offer to the incoming freshmen, to be like, hey, here is the different clubs kind of organized by different, what their roles on campus are, and then offering them contact information. And we're encouraging clubs to kind of host virtual open houses on Zoom, where the club members can come on and the freshmen can log on too, and kind of just introduce themselves. If the club member, if the club representatives want to give a little spiel about what their club is about, and so that way we're hoping that kind of brings some students in. So that's kind of what our main project is moving forward.
And Ash, what about you? You're an MBA student in the DC area, and obviously now you're back in India, but did you stay put? Were you already traveling for spring break, or what was that experience like for you as an international student?
In terms of the experience, in-class experience, teachers had kind of taken up different models. So we had one teacher who was recording the classes and then sharing the notes with us. And he was flexible enough to accommodate the fact that we students are in different parts of the country. So we may not be able to give an exam at the same time as other students. So he gave us an extension on that front. Some faculty were using different technology, and so the technology would break in the middle of the session and we'd all be struggling to hear him, or he'd be struggling to hear us. I think one of the things that we noticed as international students was the difficulty in communicating in class. While you're having an in-person session, it's easy to raise your hand while a pool of other students are doing the same and just stand up and talk about your point of view. But in an online session, that becomes really difficult, especially if there's like a language barrier. So that was pretty difficult for us to manage during the spring semester. But I think over the period, we've been adjusting to that.
So I'm curious to the six of you, and obviously Ash, I know you're international, but to the six of you, have you heard that from other friends of yours that might be international? Like, are they not allowing them to come back? Or what other pain points are they experiencing now in the summer
So personally for me, I'm not really allowed by my parents to come back to the United States. So I will most probably be doing it online. But so I could say, and I could share some ideas for both sides. So for people doing it online like me, for international students, I feel like, a lot of us have to stay up like all night till maybe 5 a.m., 6 a.m. doing classes, projects and things like that. And that's how it was for me last semester. And I'm used to it now, but I think a lot of my peers who are international students, all of them complain about it, are upset, and they're not like taking it in and saying, okay, this is reality. For me, I was enjoying that because I'm like, okay, I know I have to work on this project at this time or with this team and do things like that. So I definitely think like, I had heard this podcast by the ISO office about a girl, who's an international student, had a job right after graduation, even during the COVID thing. So maybe podcasts like that would definitely help. And like, even GW is doing like a run challenge marathon thing where you can track other international students on the Nike Run app and things like that. So I feel like if there are more things like this for international students to connect, then they might not feel like, oh, I'm alone and I'm staying up all night studying while everyone's asleep around me. And for me personally, that helped because all of my friends are the ones who are the types, who do stay up late. So they didn't like watch the recording the next day. They all stayed up. So I had that sort of.
They stayed up for the live class and knowing it was 4, 5, 6 a.m.
Yeah, live class. Yeah. And in fact, next semester, I have a class that starts at 4:30 a.m. and ends at 7:30 a.m. But like, I'm not going to ask the professor, hey, like, excuse me, because I want to be there. And I am majoring in marketing. This is like my first real marketing class at GW. So it's very important. And so I don't want to watch a recording. And like, I'm not complaining about my situation. I just want to make the most of it.
Thank you so much. Again, my name's Kevin O'Connell. We have Jacob Barker and Sarah Urtz who helped plan this. But if there's anything else that we can do, please let us know. If there's follow-up questions that we didn't get answered, you can shoot us an email or follow us on Instagram, KOCO83.